The LA Kings have hired a new head coach with an impressive resume. His last stop featured one of the highs and lows of Peter Laviolette's career. We discussed that with a special guest on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On. You get $20 off your first purchase. Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk with Gil Martin. He's the host of Locked On New York Islanders. We're going to find out if Mathew Barzal or Andres Lee could be a realistic offseason additions for the LA Kings. But we start with the host of New York's other team. He is the host of Locked On New York Rangers, and his name is Jon Chik, and he's going to give us his thoughts on the LA Kings' new head coach, Peter Laviolette. Jon, welcome to the show. Appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eddie. It's always a good time doing these crossovers. I know our teams have linked up for a couple of trades. You know, former Rangers become Kings and vice versa, so always good talking some hockey.
And we will talk a little Artemi Panarin coming up for sure, but I'm very excited about the LA Kings' new head coach, Peter Laviolette. They just introduced him at a press conference. Certainly, the resume is impressive. He's seventh all-time, soon to be sixth all-time in coaching wins, 3 different teams in the Stanley Cup final, won a cup with Carolina, and not just living off his past. Very recently with your team, the New York Rangers, took him to the Eastern Conference Finals, won a President's Trophy for the best record during the regular season. I guess first question for you is, I assume you're not surprised that Laviolette is back coaching in the NHL. Were you surprised that it was LA?
Not too much. I mean, to begin with, yeah. I mean, it was only a matter of time before he accepted another job. I think they said something like, this past season was his first season not as an NHL coach in I forget exactly how many years, but I want to say more than 20. So that's kind of crazy in and of itself. As far as the Kings, I mean, they've got an opening. It's a team that, was in the playoffs this past season, but I think that when you hire Peter Laviolette, you're looking for instant results. And obviously the Kings, they've got some young players, but they got some veterans on there as well. And there's got to be a sense of urgency in this league. And that's especially true when, certain players are getting a little bit older. I mean, it's a fairly young roster that the Kings have, but yeah, I mean, when you look for Laviolette, you're trying to catch lightning in a bottle. He's obviously had success during his, early in his stints with his new team, whoever that might be. And obviously the Rangers were no exception there, all the way to the Eastern Conference Final in Laviolette's first year.
So obviously he's not head coach of the Rangers anymore. And like most NHL head coaches, they usually don't leave on their own terms. So he spent 2 years in New York with the Rangers. First year, let's start with that. 2023-24. The Rangers go 55-23-4. They're first in the Atlantic, first in the East, and first in the NHL. Laviolette becomes the first coach, by the way, to take 6 different teams to the playoffs, which I didn't know, by the way, until I did a little research earlier today. But the Rangers make it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. They fall to the Florida Panthers in 6 games. So what went right that season, and how much do you credit Peter Laviolette coming in that first year and kind of, I don't know if turning the Rangers around is the right word, but getting them obviously to one step within the Stanley Cup final?
Yeah, everything just kind of came together. Everything just kind of clicked. It was one of those seasons where I think the Rangers kind of caught a wave early in the season and they just kept riding it. And Laviolette certainly deserves a lot of credit. It's easy to forget that the season before that, on paper, the Rangers had a good season, right? They had more than 100 points. That was the season where they made the splashy moves at the deadline. You go out and get Kane. You go out and you get Tarasenko. And everything looked awesome the first 2 games of the playoffs. I mean, they absolutely smoked the Devils, but then they end up losing in 7 games in embarrassing fashion in that series. It cost Gerard Gallant his job. So, yeah, I mean, they were coming off a good season in terms of their win-loss record, but they were kind of in some turmoil, and there's kind of some finger pointing. I mean, that might have been mostly us fans doing that, but, who's to blame here, and who's going to come in and fix this mess? And Peter Laviolette does it. And the thing that I like most about Laviolette in year one is it feels like just about every player on the New York Rangers had a career year or something that was at least resembling a career year. I mean, the entire line of Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafrenière, I would put that lineup against anybody that season. I think Laviolette seemed to have a way of reaching Lafrenière. He's now 6 years into his career, and it's been very up and down, to say the least. Thus far, I think it's fair to say that Lafrenière has fallen short of the expectations that naturally come with being number one overall. But that season, I mean, Lafrenière, it seemed like he trusted his instincts, he trusted his ability. And for the first time really ever, he had a coach that believed in him and put him in a really prominent spot in the lineup alongside Panarin and Trocheck. And Lafrenière obviously responded very positively. So you've got that. I mean, even Panarin, by his insane standards, I mean, he had like 120-something points that season. So, I mean, really, he just seemed to push the right buttons. He saw a team that had kind of underachieved the season before when they got knocked out in the first round. And I think he empowered these guys to be themselves. I mean, he obviously runs a system and everything, but I think there was a certain amount of freedom that was afforded to these guys on the ice as well. And, I mean, you see the result. They, like I said, they caught a wave early, and they just really never faltered. And, well, until the conference final anyway. But, that was that 3-year window where basically everybody faltered against the Florida Panthers. So it was what it was. For what it's worth, that is one of my favorite seasons as a Ranger fan ever. And, the Stanley Cups are obviously few and far between for us, but I'll always be appreciative of Laviolette in that first year coming in and, righting the ship very quickly. And again, one of the most successful seasons that I've seen as a Ranger fan.
Well, certainly what you say about Alexis Lafrenière resonates with me, and I'm sure Kings fans, because the second pick in that draft was Quinton Byfield, and it's been somewhat of a similar story here. High expectations, expect him to be, a real difference maker. And he's had his ups and downs. There's certainly been some highlight moments. He's been a very solid two-way player, but the offensive production has not been there the way a lot of fans would like to see it. So I do think that hopefully Peter Laviolette can have a similar impact maybe on Quinton Byfield's career to get him to a level where he hasn't been quite yet. And do you think that, as you said, with what he did with Alexis Lafrenière, that maybe there's a good sign there that Quinton Byfield could benefit from Peter Laviolette as well?
Yeah, I think it's certainly possible. And I think step one, and I don't know how the Kings line up like every single night. I don't catch every Kings game. They're just on too late out here on the East Coast. But yeah, man, I mean, the bottom line is he put Lafrenière in position to succeed. He gave him good line mates. He gave him increased ice time. And a top six job was basically his to lose. And I think with Lafrenière, and I don't know if Byfield's the same way, it seems like the more they're entrusted, the more they're given a bigger role, the more they tend to excel. And I understand this is the NHL and there can't be free handouts and whatnot, but Quinton Byfield is somebody that, to your point, Eddie, I mean, he's been a solid player for you guys. He has, but number 2 overall in the draft, you're probably looking for a little bit more in the way of offensive production. And I think that Laviolette's probably going to take one look at this kid and give him that opportunity. I think for sure he'll be entrenched in a prominent role with the Kings. To me, that's step one. I mean, if you want to get the best out of an athlete and you're a coach really at any level, show that athlete that you believe in them. And I think that's something that Peter Laviolette did very well with Alexis Lafrenière and some other Rangers as well. And I think for sure, I mean, it's crazy to think Byfield's still only 23, but I think for sure you might see something similar there with Laviolette and Byfield, a similar dynamic.
Well, obviously, the second season for Peter Laviolette did not go nearly as well as the first season. The record was 39, 36, and 7. They missed the playoffs entirely, 5th in the Metro, and they became the fourth President's Trophy winning team to go from best regular season record to miss the playoffs the following year. So what went wrong in year number 2, and how much of that do you put on the head coach?
Just about everything went wrong. So I'll get to that in just a second, but I'll actually answer the second question first. With Laviolette, I mean, look, nobody's blameless in a season like that, right? When you go from President's Trophy winners and 2 wins shy of making it to the Stanley Cup final, and then you completely fall apart the next season, the effort is really lacking far too often, and you miss the playoffs entirely. Everybody from the owner to the GM to the coaches to the players, they all have a hand in that. And Laviolette certainly bears some responsibility. But as I said, as that season was unfolding and everything was falling apart and everything was a mess, I put less blame on Laviolette than probably anybody else involved with this, because Chris Drury, and keep in mind, this is a season after, once again, they won the President's Trophy. He decides it's time to, kick a beehive and make all these wholesale changes. And, the whole Jacob Trouba saga where they're going to trade him and then, oh, just kidding, we're not going to trade you. And then it lingers into the season and then they trade him anyway. And then the whole thing with Barclay Goodrow where they, put him on waivers so that the Sharks would claim him. On one hand, a GM's got to do what he's got to do. On the other hand, I think the Ranger players felt a little bit slighted at that time because, again, they did just have such an excellent season and they were very, very close. And we've seen multiple examples, Eddie, of like different Stanley Cup winning teams that have kind of been knocking on the door, and then they eventually kick the door in and they win it. And I feel like those Ranger players, they want another shot at it, and they feel like, they didn't get it. By that same token, then they decide to mope around for the next bunch of months, and everything, like I said, just fell apart. Laviolette did his best. I mean, he messed with the line combinations, the defense pairings. He tried different things. He even did some like kind of quirky, funny things. Like they had the stick graveyard when they were really in a slump. They all like threw their sticks to the side of the rink. Like, okay, we're just going to start fresh. Everybody grab a new stick. We're starting over fresh today. And then the one practice I remember, he's out there on his skates, and he was actually participating in the shootout drill against Igor Shesterkin. So he went to his bag of tricks. He tried, obviously more practical hockey tactics as well. Nothing seemed to work. And by the end of the season, so many players in this Ranger team just looked like they had checked out. And again, the coach is not blameless in this situation, but I think it really got to a point where he just didn't know what to do. I mean, nothing was resonating, and these guys had just phoned it in. And it's unfortunate, but I think by the end, by the time you're getting down to a month left, the writing was on the wall that he was going to be gone. I mean, I guess they were technically still in contention for a playoff spot. So had they eked in and like maybe won a round, maybe that would have saved him. But yeah, the writing was on the wall, and I think he knew that too. And it just wasn't a good situation that last season.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more about Peter Laviolette and also a couple of Ranger players that may be on the move. Is LA a possibility? The two teams had a big trade last year we all know about. We'll get into that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The hunt for the Stanley Cup is on, and now you can trade every game on Kalshi. That's every single game of the Stanley Cup final on Kalshi. At last check, the Vegas Golden Knights are trading at 51% to beat the Carolina Hurricanes in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup final. A $100 trade pays out $189. And if you're an NBA fan, the San Antonio Spurs are trading at 65% to beat the New York Knicks in Game 5 of the NBA Finals. A $100 trade pays out $150. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there is no house. As the probabilities change, you can buy in or out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use the code LOCKEDON, and you'll get $10 when you trade 10. Kalshi, Kalshi, trade on anything. All right, we are continuing with Jon Chik. He is the host of Locked On New York Rangers. John, wanted to ask you about some players on the Rangers coming up and a former Rangers player as well. But I guess just to kind of wrap up a little bit of the Peter Laviolette thing, is there anything particularly you really liked about him as a head coach? And maybe was there anything that you didn't care for as a head coach for your team?
Yeah, it's a good question. As far as, things that I like, I mean, when they hired him, I described it on my show as an obnoxiously safe hire. And I think, honestly, that kind of applies for the Kings here as well. But just because it's kind of like the safe hire or, however you want to describe it, it doesn't mean that it's a bad hire. And this is somebody that comes with, a great reputation. You mentioned earlier, Eddie, that he had taken 3 different teams to the Stanley Cup final and obviously won it the one time with the Carolina Hurricanes. But I can just appreciate the fire that he brings. I mean, when they hired him, I remember, I think the show was Road to the Winter Classic from years ago, back when he was coaching the Flyers. But they showed, those clips of him behind the scenes where, he's chewing out his team and he's getting on them, but like he's not saying anything that's like truly over the line or truly unfair. I mean, if you play poorly, you're going to hear about it, and he's going to let you know, and he's going to give you a kick in the you-know-what because he knows you can do better. And I mean, if it's like, say, the first intermission, there's 40 minutes to go, and, let's go win this thing. So I think he has kind of a knack for pushing guys the right amount. Like, I know that there's a controversial hire right now with Mike Babcock, and he's probably somebody that takes things a little bit too far, to put it very mildly. Laviolette, I think, has that right balance where he's demanding and he pushes guys, but he also shows you that he cares about them and that he believes in them. As far as things I don't like, I mean, like I said, at the end of the second season, it felt like everybody involved with the Rangers was just waiting for the season to be over. And I don't think I can really exclude him from that either. He made some really strange lineup decisions down the stretch. Like Gabe Perreault had just made his NHL debut, former first rounder for the Rangers, and he's like making him a healthy scratch. And it's just like, dude, what are we doing here? Like, what is even the point of this? Get this kid some reps. And I mean, not only that, but he was just better than a lot of the other options that the Rangers had at that time. So some strange lineup decisions, I guess, down the stretch would be the one thing. But it is what it is. 2 years here, it was a tale of 2 seasons. I'll always look back very fondly on that first one. And the second one, I mean, like I said, the organization top to bottom basically just caved in on itself. And even though he's not blameless, I put less blame on Laviolette than anybody else that had anything to do with that.
One more quick coaching question. Peter Laviolette looking to fill out his staff. Phil Housley's name has come up as an assistant. I know he was there with the Rangers. Any thoughts on Phil Housley as a guy to join Laviolette's staff here in LA?
Yeah, he kind of came under some fire from Ranger fans because I feel like, especially in year 2, the Raider defensemen, particularly the way they defended against the rush, just was very strange. You know, they'd be up against the rush and they would just give so much ground. I joked on my show, one of these days a Ranger defenseman is going to keep back skating until they back into the boards behind the net and just hit the boards and wipe out. And they also went to this move, and this can work, granted, but I swear every time a team had the puck and took it into the Ranger zone with any kind of steam, the Ranger defenseman would flop down to the ice, you know, looking to block the pass, block the shot, whatever. And they would often just slide across the ice and take themselves out of the play. So Housley ended up catching a lot of heat for that from Ranger fans. It's hard to know exactly, you know, which assistant coach you should blame for this and which assistant coach should get praise for that. I mean, it's obviously a very collaborative effort, but yeah, I mean, when Laviolette was going to get fired, it was pretty obvious Housley was going to go with him. But I will say this, like anytime there's a new head coach at really any level, I'm a big proponent of letting them pick their staff. You know, the GM should stay out of it. The owner should stay out of it. And, you know, the coach should be given free reign to bring in his people and the people that he's comfortable with and the people that he thinks will lead to success for his team. So, I mean, if he wants Phil Housley back, I think that should be his right. And, you know, he should be able to make that decision.
Yeah, it sounds like that will be the case here in LA for Peter Laviolette. Obviously, you have to bring up Artemi Panarin, the big trade between the two teams last season. Certainly worked out well for the Kings. Panarin was still a point-per-game player with them. He helped to revitalize their power play. I think we were very happy with the Breadman here in LA. We'll wait and see what the return is for the Rangers with a guy like Liam Greentree and how that could eventually help you down the road. But I have to ask you, Panarin, as you mentioned, he had a career year when Laviolette joined the team. His first year with the Rangers, Panarin had 120 points and finished 5th in the Hart Trophy voting. Anything in particular that you saw that Laviolette, the way he used Panarin, or anything else as far as how or why he had that big year with Peter Laviolette?
Well, the biggest change in Panarin's game that season was actually something that was pretty simple. He just started shooting the puck more. And I don't know if that was Panarin, you know, taking on that responsibility himself, or if he was encouraged to do so by Laviolette and the coaching staff, maybe a mix of both. But for years on Locked On Rangers, man, I would come on here and obviously, I mean, you watch Panarin on the ice and you're blown away with some of the things that he can do. But the only critique that I ever really had of him was this guy needs to shoot the puck more. You know, there was an interview with Henrik Lundqvist where he was asked something about like, who's got the most accurate shot that you've seen, like of your teammates, like at practice and whatnot. And he said Panarin. And this is a guy that, for his career has always been known as a pass first guy. And I think part of the reason for that, he's a selfless player. He wants to set up his buddies for some easy goals. But at the same time, man, if you've got that weapon in your arsenal, I mean, you gotta use it. And I think, again, very simple change, but Panarin was shooting the puck more often. I'm trying to remember how many goals he had that year. I mean, I think it was more than 40, if I'm remembering correctly. But just 49. A career year, 49. Yeah, that sounds about right. So, yeah, I mean, I think he was just empowered by Laviolette to go out there and, you know, play hockey the way that he knows how. I think also in the playoffs that year, that was the best playoff run that Panarin has probably ever had. A little bit more physical in the playoffs and willing to fight for pucks, play just more playoff style of hockey. Now, against the Panthers in the conference final, that did slow down quite a bit. I mean, that 3-year window for the Panthers, they slowed everybody down. But Panarin was no exception. But yeah, I think more than anything, you know, Laviolette just empowered him to go out there and do the things that he knows how to do. I mean, when you've got a player that good, you've got to give them some free reign. You know, you got to let them go out there and create offense the way that they know how to do it.
While you're here, I have to ask you about a couple of Rangers players that may be on the move. We've heard one of their names come up quite a bit, but the Kings are in desperate need of finding a top 6 center. Anze Kopitar has retired. They've got Quinton Byfield there to be either the first or second line center, depending on who they could bring in. But the Rangers do have some depth at the center position with Mika Zibanejad and JT Miller and Vincent Trocheck, who's the name that's come up a lot. And the Rangers are in a bit of a retool. Do you see Zibanejad or Trocheck possibly being moved And just what is the likelihood that happens? And do you think LA could be a trade partner with the Rangers once again?
Yeah, I mean, they've struck a couple of trades in recent history. And, like we were saying earlier, we've seen, multiple players in recent years play for both of these teams. So there seems to be a rapport there when it comes to trade talks. Mika's not going anywhere. He's got a full no move clause, and it hasn't come up very often, but anytime it has, Mika's made it very, very clear. And, this is somebody that tends to play things close to the vest, I think, but he's made it very clear. He knows what's in his contract, and he's not going anywhere. He wants to live in New York. He's got a family here now as well. He seems to really love the city. And he had a really nice bounce back season for himself this past year as well. One of the few things that went right in what was an otherwise pretty terrible season for the New York Rangers. So I guess never say never, but I can't possibly see Mika getting traded to LA or anywhere else. Vincent Trocheck, I think there's a very real possibility. If you go back to this past season's trade deadline, he was on the block. There were some talks that it could happen. He had a 12-team no-trade list. It's going to get knocked down to a 10-team no-trade list this upcoming season. But there was some talks obviously happening. I think basically what happened is the Rangers had a certain price that they were set on in terms of a return package for Vincent Trocheck. They didn't get what they wanted, and so they decided to hold firm at least until this offseason. Now, again, he can only block a trade to 10 teams. So I get the feeling the Rangers at this point, they're at least open for business. They'll at least listen. And this is a controversial take that I've had on Locked On Rangers, but I am in favor, at least before this upcoming season's trade deadline, of dealing Vincent Trocheck. And the reason for that, you saw how bad the Rangers have been the last 2 years. Third to last in the NHL this past year. Trocheck is under contract for another 3 years. He's a great player, Swiss Army knife, does a little bit of everything to help your team. And that's all well and good. And he's on a great contract as well. But I don't foresee in the next 3 years Vincent Trocheck as a member of the Rangers lifting the Stanley Cup over his head. And if that's the case, then it gets to a point, he'll be 33 before this upcoming season. You got to trade him while you can still get something for him. And something else to build on that I never hear anybody talk about this, but Trocheck played with Panarin all those years with New York, right? So his numbers are going to be inflated by playing with such a great player. Panarin's not here anymore. So you're going to, I think, inevitably see his numbers start to take a hit. And if that happens, then his trade value goes down. So I'm okay going into this season with him. Maybe you see how things play out if you're the Rangers, and if they surprise some people and they're good, you can hang on to him. But if not, he's got to be dealt before this upcoming trade deadline. And this, I say this as a big fan of his, but just looking at the business side of it and where the Rangers are right now, to me, that's the play here. And as far as the Kings, I looked at their depth chart, and yeah, it does look like they could use another, top 6 center. And I think Trocheck would fit right in there. And hey, you could put him right back with Artemi Panarin, and they can pick up where they left off, earlier this past season.
One final question about Trocheck. Every time I bring his name up, Kings fans tell me that he doesn't want to come to the West. Is that legit? Has he verbalized that? Are you hearing that as well, or have you not heard that?
I haven't heard that in particular. It's interesting with these no trade lists because, they don't leak, which is, I guess, is a good thing. You protect the privacy of the player as much as you can, but we have no way of knowing if they're on his list or not. I do feel like there were some rumblings that maybe he would prefer to stay on the East Coast. That's at least possible. I know a lot of players, if they're living in the United States, they'll add the Canadian teams to their no trade list, so as not to have to move to a different country. The Kings, yeah, I can't say for sure. I feel like there would be some appeal there, though, because New York's a big market, LA's a big market. He's got his buddy Artemi Panarin there. It'd be interesting to see if the Rangers and Kings work something out, if he'd be willing to go there. Can't say for sure. Haven't really seen anything definitive one way or the other, though.
He is Jon Chik. He is the host of Locked On New York Rangers. If you want to follow him on social media, he's at jchik, SHIK 17. And you can find Locked On New York Rangers on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Jon, thanks for the time. Always appreciate it. And best of luck to the Rangers next season.
Yeah, same to you, man. We'll link up for one of these during the season when our teams are playing each other for sure.
All right, we're going to keep it going with the New York theme. Gil Martin from Locked On Islanders is going to stop by real quick, talk about maybe some players on his roster that could fill the LA Kings need as a top 6 center. Do that next year on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. There is nothing like playoff hockey live. The intensity, the rivalries, the crowd, it's just different when you're in the building. Playoffs are some of the best moments in sports, and being there in person is something every fan should experience. Game Time makes it incredibly easy to find tickets, even for those high-demand playoff games in just a few taps. And with the Game Time guarantee, you know you're getting 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. I was browsing the Game Time app, checking out tickets for Stanley Cup Finals game number 6 in Las Vegas. There are tickets available there. And USA versus Paraguay here in Los Angeles. You can get tickets available for both of those amazing events by using the Game Time app. It's super easy to use. You can find tickets fast. The pricing is all in, so you see what you pay for. There are no surprise fees. Plus, the lowest price guarantee and ticket coverage. I feel confident every time I buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Get your daily LA Kings fix completely ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club today. Start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to the LA Kings without the interruptions. Click on the link in the show notes or go to lockedonlakings.supercast.com to claim your free trial. We continue to look at the LA Kings offseason and them attempting to fill the biggest hole in their roster with the retirement of Jon Chik. They are desperately looking for a top 6 center, and that is not easy to find in the NHL these days. There are a lot of teams that are looking, but we welcome in friend of the show and the host of Locked On New York Islanders, Gil Martin, to discuss a couple of players with ties to the Islanders. Gil, how are you?
Doing well, Eddie. Thanks for having me.
So Mathew Barzal, your second line center, his name is out there in, I guess, rumors that he could potentially be on the move. He is locked up for the next 5 years and had 72 points last year for you, which certainly isn't bad. I guess the obvious question would be for me is, why is his name coming up? Is there any legitimacy to his name coming up in trade rumors?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the reason his name may be coming up in these rumors is the Islanders have a cap crunch. Right now, they have approximately $10.6 million in available cap space with a few players that they still need to sign. They've been sort of stuck in the middle of the league standings where they either just make or just miss the playoffs for the last 5 or 6 years.
We can relate.
Haven't won a playoff series in 5 years.
We can relate.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. So in order to improve the team, you need to free up cap space to bring in new players. Barzal has the highest cap hit on the team at $9.15 million. And so his name, comes up with the fact that, I don't think they're shopping him actively, but if they can get the right deal in return to improve the team long-term, I think they'd be open to dealing Mathew Barzal.
So maybe kind of a Robert Thomas type of a situation with St. Louis, that we've heard his name out there a lot.
Yeah, I don't think they're desperately seeking to unload him, but for the right offer, they'll listen.
So any idea on what the right offer might be? What would the Islanders be looking for in a return for Matt Barzal?
Yeah, that's a darn good question. And I think, the Islanders' biggest need is 2 things. Number one is goal scoring, which I know every team in the league is looking for. But the Islanders probably need a minimum of 2 top 6 forwards, preferably wingers, because they do have a glut at center as far as the roster is concerned. But they were 26th in the league in scoring, 30th in the league on the power play. So somebody who could put the puck in the net would be ideal, and preferably somebody who is, let's say, 27 or younger, just because this team needs to get younger. There are a few too many 30-plus guys on this roster.
Yeah, and as I said a few times there, we can relate as Kings fans as far as what we're looking for. So the Islanders are not looking for prospects. They're not looking for draft picks. They're looking for somebody that can help them now.
You see, that's the other sort of controversy. I think they should be looking more for picks and prospects, but I think ownership is sort of saying we want to compete for the playoffs this year and every year. And they may not be willing to go down that road where, you're not going to make the playoffs for a couple of years, but you're building something bigger.
Once again, I think we can relate as Kings fans as well. I did want to ask you about Andres Lee. He is a UFA. He is a center. 42 points last season, but he's 35 years old and he is your captain, at least for the moment. Certainly the loss of Kopitar, Kings will be looking probably for some leadership to try and come up if possible. But again, they're looking for a top 6 center. I would imagine at his age, that would be a stretch to ask him to be a second line center on a team like the Kings.
Yeah, I mean, Lee is a natural winger rather than a center, although he is good on faceoffs. He will take, like Mathew Barzal, not very good on faceoffs, and Lee very often took the faceoffs, even though he was playing wing when he was on a line with Matt Barzal. But Andres Lee will give you leadership. He is great in the community. He is a net front presence. He will deflect pucks, screen goalies, fight for position in front of the goal. He is going to be 36 next month, so his numbers declined from 29 goals a year ago to 19 this year. His physical game is not as, his game is not as physical as it used to be. His hits are down, that kind of a thing. But could he give you 15 to 20 goals and be a useful third line winger and second power play unit kind of a guy? Yeah, he can do that. But is he a top 6 fit on a regular basis? Probably not. If you need him for a few games, yeah, he can do that.
Do you think that he'll want to finish out his career with New York, and considering he's their captain, maybe he gives them the hometown discount, or do you think he's looking to go elsewhere?
I think he would prefer to stay with the Islanders. It's been the only team he's played for in the NHL. He's been there for, I believe it's 14 years. However, you got to find a salary and a term that works for both sides. And again, with the Islanders having that cap crunch, I said they have $10.6 million in salary cap available right now. Andres Lee would take up roughly half of that at least if they were to sign him to even a 1 or 2 year deal. I mean, he's not going to take less than $5 million. So I think that just may be a situation where the needs of the player and the needs of the team are not going to be on the same page.
That is Gil Martin. He is the host of Locked On New York Islanders. And Gil, we appreciate a little bit of your time here in the offseason as we are trying to figure out what our teams are going to do to try and get better for next year. Thanks, Gil.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On LA Kings to get all the latest episodes. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On LA Kings ad-free plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to LockedOnLAKings.supercast.com to join the club. For you Everydayers, those who listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, our next show will be our weekly Kings fan feedback show. If you want to get an email in for that, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And you can always leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section. We'd love for you to stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thanks for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.